Amazing reunion. Lone Rancher's touching discovery of his hidden bride after 5 long years apart. Jake stood at the edge of his land, eyes fixed on the horizon, where the sun began to rise like an unyielding fire. The expansive plains of Texas stretched before him, yet they felt like a prison. Each dawn was a reminder of Emily, the laughter that rang like music, the gentle whispers of dreams shared beneath starlit skies, and the promises they once made. 5 years had slipped by since he lost her, and now his life was a shadow of what could have been. With drought creeping over the fields, his ranch was struggling, just like his heart. Desperation gnawed at him as he confronted his loneliness, an ache as persistent as the relentless Texas sun. He had poured everything into this land since losing Emily. The barn was meticulously maintained, the horses cared for as if they were family. But now the drought threatened to take it all away. His home, his legacy, and his spirit. Trying to focus on the task at hand, he suddenly felt something beneath his boot, a loose floorboard creaking beneath him. He knelt down, prying it open. Inside lay an old, weathered letter, its ink faded but the message unmistakable. Emily was nearby, trapped in a world that wasn't her own. The revelation hit him like a jolt. She was just a few miles away, straddling the chasm between their past and an uncertain future. Swallowing his emotions, he felt a flicker of something, hope. But almost as quickly doubt flooded in, relentless and suffocating. What could he offer her now? He was just a poor rancher, a simple man tied to the land, far removed from the life of affluence that her family expected. Torn between the desire to reconnect and the fear of rejection, he wrestled with the daunting possibility of confronting the memories that so often haunted him. What if she had moved on? What if she was as lost in captivity as he felt on this barren land? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. He fought through each step, remembering the night spent with Emily, the way her smile lit up his world. The memories morphed into a blur of happiness and despair as he traveled the dusty roads back to town. Would they be enough to bridge the distance that their lives had forced between them? As murmurs of judgment wafted through the streets, he felt their stares, the whispers about the poor rancher still echoing like a cruel prophecy. Just as he began imagining her face, an unsettling thought struck him. What if Emily was too deep in her family's grasp to choose him? The pain of that realization tightened his chest, but a glimmer of determination flared to life once more. He refused to let fear overshadow his longing. Closing his eyes, he pictured their reunion, a moment of reckoning where the past would finally meet the present. But as he neared the threshold of possibility, a devastating twist revealed that Emily's ambitions were merely a mask, a way to appease her family. It could just pull her further away from him. Standing frozen, Jake faced the uncharted territory of their reunion, a raging internal battle raging within him. Would he risk everything for a love that once bloomed so beautifully? Or would he remain chained to the past? As uncertainty loomed, his phone buzzed, bringing the weight of a decision crashing down upon him. A message from Emily that could either weave them back together or send them spiraling apart for eternity. The stakes had never been higher. Jake's heart raced as he stared at his phone, the glowing screen illuminating his conflicted emotions. He had spent the last 5 years wrestling with his grief and loss, but now, the flickering hope of reconnecting with Emily felt alarmingly real. As he opened the message, each word seemed laden with weight. Questions surged in his mind, gnawing at his resolve. What would she say? Did she ask for him? His thumb hovered over the reply button, his breath hitching in his throat. The inner turmoil of self-doubt skittered through his mind. Could he still matter to her? Each second felt like an eternity until he could no longer tolerate the stillness. He quickly typed a response. Emily, I found your letter. I had no idea. After hitting send, Anticipation twisted in his stomach. He imagined her reading his words, the energy shifting as old memories collided with their present realities. Would she feel the same tug at her heart? Would she remember the way they promised to chase their dreams together only to be swept apart by circumstances beyond their control? While waiting for her response, Jake took a moment to reflect on his life. The ranch was more than just a livelihood. It was a testament to every choice he had made after losing her. The lines etched in his hands told stories of labor and sacrifice, while fear shadowed his every waking moment. The fear of failure, of abandonment, of never being enough. Yet, in the aftermath of discovering Emily's proximity, that fear felt almost small, eclipsed by an urgency he hadn't felt in years. As he paced the narrow space between the cattle pens and the barn, he remembered the version of himself before Emily had left. The man who was ambitious, vibrant, full of life. And yet those qualities seemed faded now, buried beneath layers of regret and resolve. "I need to be that man again," he muttered to himself, an affirmation against the crushing weight of doubt. Taking a deep breath, Jake made a decision. He would prepare not just for her response, but for the possibility of their reunion. He started moving, surveying the land as it revealed itself to him in the early afternoon sun. A canvas to reimagine. He needed to consider what he could offer not just as a rancher but as the partner she deserved. If they could rekindle their connection, he wanted to be the man she fell in love with all those years ago, not the remnants of his pain. He spent hours cleaning up the yard, fixing broken fences and trimming overgrown pathways. Physical labor shifted his mental state, grounding him even as uncertainty loomed over his future. Each project completed fueled his determination. He was not just repairing the land, but also rebuilding himself. Finally, his phone buzzed once again. The movement brought Jake back to reality, a rock in a turbulent sea. Heart pounding, he picked it up to read Emily's unwavering words. "I can't believe you found it. Can we meet?" A surge of exhilaration filled him, alongside the realization that their paths could easily intertwine once more. It was time to confront the fears that had kept him from embracing life fully, the doubts, the loneliness, the haunting absence of what was once so vibrant. Jake took a moment to gather himself before typing a simple yet profound reply. Yes. Where and when? But deep down, he knew their reunion was layered with past shadows and future uncertainties. He had ignited a flicker of hope, but with it came the weight of potential heartbreak. With each passing minute, he understood that reclaiming Emily might mean confronting the ghost of who he had become. Would they survive the collision of their two worlds, or would they be forever altered by their choices? As the sun set once more over the Texas plains, painting the landscape with colors of possibility, Jake prepared for the response that would set everything in motion. Would this chance ignite a new beginning, or would he find himself consumed by the struggle of their divergent paths? The moment for revelation was drawing closer, leaving unanswered questions swarming in the air. What bonds would be tested as they ventured back into each other's lives? Would the passion lost still glow brightly enough to light their reunion, or would it flicker out forever? Jake's pulse quickened as he stood beneath the fading light, the reality of Emily's invitation settling over him like a warm blanket. He had spent countless nights fretting over the possibility of crossing paths with her again, but now that it was imminent, a new wave of anxiety threatened to drown him. Could he truly make amends for the time lost? Could he convince her that the man standing before her was worth her time after all the years apart? The moment he had longed for was finally within grasp, yet he found himself questioning everything about how to prepare. Was he ready to bare his soul, to share the raw essence of his journey back from despair? With each breath that filled his lungs, Jake considered the weight of what lay ahead. His failures, his dreams unmet, and the relentless pursuit of peace he had fought so hard to achieve. It wasn't just about rekindling a flame. It was about confronting the ashes of who he had been. As the twilight painted the sky, Jake made his way inside, the heaviness of his thoughts lingering like shadows. He paced through what had become his sanctuary, the walls adorned with quiet tokens of memories. A worn-out chair, a collection of books gathering dust, each object reflecting a time before regret. He no longer wanted to remain just a steward of the ranch. He aspired to be a pillar of strength for Emily, someone she could lean on as they both navigated the complexities of their reunion. Jake thrust open the door to his modest kitchen, the scent of coffee lingering from earlier still in the air. He poured himself a mug, the warmth seeping through the ceramic and into his hands, steadying his racing mind. Pondering their scheduled meeting, he admitted to himself that he needed to evolve his narrative. He had to show Emily that he was more than the grief-stricken man she once knew. But how? What steps could he take to express the growth he had painstakingly nurtured over the years? His thoughts turned to communication, both spoken and unspoken. What truths did he need to confront in himself before they could face each other? The sheer act of self-reflection uncovered desires buried beneath fear. He had a longing for authenticity, not just for himself, but for the relationship that had once flourished. Encouraged by this realization, Jake tapped into the well of his aspirations. He envisioned a version of himself who could articulate those burdens, harnessing the courage to admit not only how lost he had been, but also how fervently he had clung to the hope of reconciliation. Would he have the audacity to expose his vulnerability, to advocate for the importance of their shared history and potential future? Sipping the bitter brew, he made up his mind. The words he couldn't find in years past needed to emerge now, unfiltered, filled with the truths of their shared, fragmented past. His meeting with Emily would not only be a stage for nostalgia but a platform for growth and healing. It would be an opportunity to carve a new path, one paved with honesty. As he prepared himself for tomorrow, Jake sought an inner peace that he could offer to both Emily and himself. Standing at the kitchen window and gazing out at the stars slowly creeping into the night, he filled his lungs, inhaling deeply, the air rich with promise. Then just as he began to feel a sense of calm, another thought snaked its way in, sending a chill down his spine. What if Emily had changed as well? Would she even recognize the man he had become? The uncertainty of how much they both had altered in their years apart loomed large. Determined yet fearful, Jake ventured outside again, feeling the cool Texas breeze invigorate him as he faced the unknown. His heart beat with ambition, but the weight of potential heartbreak echoed in his ears. He needed to embrace both sides of this reunion, the joy of rediscovery and the risk of rejection. Tomorrow would be more than just a meeting. It would be a reckoning. Would he have the strength to share his truth? And more importantly, would either of them survive the raw emotional terrain that lay ahead? In that quiet moment beneath the vast sky, Jake understood that he was not just about to meet Emily. He was about to confront the very fabric of hope and fear entwined within his heart. The dawn of tomorrow would unfold with its own revelations, but would he be ready for whatever came next? Morning light filtered through the window, illuminating the space with a golden hue that felt surreal against the weight of Jake's impending meeting with Emily. As he prepared himself with each passing minute, he caught glimpses of his reflection in the kitchen's family photos, reminders of happier times and what he now hoped to reclaim. With every brush against the counter or clink of a dish, the gravity of the occasion settled heavier on his shoulders. He couldn't shake the doubt that had crept in during the night. What if the person he had fought to become wasn't enough? The facade of confidence he'd built seemed flimsy when he acknowledged the depth of his emotional scars. Yet amid this internal chaos, a flicker of determination ignited within him. Today wasn't merely an opportunity to see Emily. It was a chance to confront the harsh truths of his existence. Once he had finished his coffee, Jake donned his favorite faded shirt, the one that had always made him feel a thread closer to the man he yearned to be. As he examined his worn denim in the mirror, he realized he was still operating under a lingering notion of inadequacy, a vestige of his darker days. A deep breath steadied him, allowing the creeping insecurities to recede momentarily. This time, he would not hide behind his past. He would come forward with authenticity. Driving toward the cafe, he replayed snippets of their prior conversations in his mind. The laughter, the late-night confessions, knowing those shared moments could not be brushed aside. He was no longer the boy lost in his grief. He was a man forged in hardship, shaped by every loss and every failure. But would he be able to communicate that to Emily? Arriving at the quaint cafe, Jake parked and took a moment to breathe in the brisk air, a stark reminder of the world outside his internal struggles. The familiar scent of freshly baked pastries wafted from the entrance, drawing him closer. Inside, the chatter of customers blended seamlessly with soft music, creating an atmosphere punctuated by warmth and promise, a stark contrast to the turmoil rattling in his gut. As he stepped in, the warmth enveloped him, though his heart raced fiercely in response to the thrumming anticipation of the reunion. Scanning the room, his gaze settled on an empty table, their table, from years past. Memories flooded back, colorful, yet bittersweet. Would this spot evoke nostalgia or serve as a reminder of what slipped through his fingers? Then, like a sudden burst of thunder in a clear sky, Emily entered and every earlier nagging doubt evaporated. She carried herself with a graceful confidence, a ripple of energy that demanded attention, but as her eyes flickered across the room, a quiet hesitation lingered, suggesting she too was grappling with uncertainty. Jake's breath hitched. She looked both familiar and foreign, a remnant of the past tangled with the specter of time. His heart tore at the sight of her, this beautiful woman, who once knew him intimately, and yet was now a stranger, standing on the precipice of a potential new beginning. With his resolve flagging momentarily, he approached her, each step a mix of eagerness and trepidation. "Emily," he began, allowing the weight of her name to linger between them, a bridge built from shared history. But what would he say next? The words teetered on the edge of his consciousness, clamoring to be spoken. Her gaze met his, dark eyes swirling with a mixture of curiosity and guardedness. Would she hear his truth? Would he be able to impart decades of lessons learned in fleeting moments? Jake felt a roar rise within him, demanding to break free, the fierce need to prove that he wasn't just the remnant of a failed past but a man capable of forging a meaningful future. The conversation ahead loomed like an enigmatic mountain, both formidable and exhilarating, but a new thought pierced through the moment. Would she welcome the man he had become, or had he ultimately been transformed into someone she could never accept? As uncertainty hung in the air between them, two paths seemed to unfurl, one leading to reconciliation and the other veering dangerously toward rejection. This was it, the moment everything could change, but what lay just beyond it? The air crackled with unspoken words as Jake stood facing Emily, the weight of 5 years pressing down like a dense fog. He could feel the world narrowing to the confines of their shared history and the hesitance etched in her features. His pulse quickened, and he grappled with an inner longing to transform the moment into something profoundly authentic. Jake realized that the truth of his journey and the man he had become needed to emerge, bold and unfiltered, for either clarity or closure to seep through the awkwardness. "Can we sit?" he asked, the simple request breaking the tense silence as his heart raced with anticipation of her response. She nodded slowly, and he led the way to their familiar spot, but it felt strangely foreign, like a shrine to memories that had been untouched for too long. As they settled in, he saw the flicker of vulnerability in her eyes, reminiscent of the late-night conversations that once connected their souls deeply. But now, she wore a facade of caution, a defensive barrier he had helped to build with their past. The aroma of coffee and pastries surrounded them, yet Jake found it hard to concentrate on anything but the gravity of their reunion. "Jake," she finally said, her voice a tentative thread that tethered him back to reality. "I didn't expect to see you." The words hung heavy in the air, laced with uncertainty, and he wondered if she was grappling with an assortment of emotions: fear, excitement, nostalgia. "I didn't know what to expect," he confessed, willing himself to maintain eye contact. "I hoped we could talk. I've missed you, more than I thought I would." As he spoke, he sensed the possibility of this moment turning into a catharsis, or a regretful departure. But for him, there was no way to back down now. It was time to confront his past openly. Her response was slow, as if she were weighing each word against an internal scale of carefully guarded memories. "I've missed you too, but he interrupted, an impulse driven by the desperation to convey his transformation. But I'm not the same guy you knew. The last few years, they taught me things I didn't know I needed to learn. I had to confront my demons to understand who I really am. And you were a part of that journey. In that moment, a flicker of recognition flashed across her face, a glimmer of acknowledgement that perhaps the distance had shaped them both. Jake leaned in, driven by a recklessness he hadn't felt in years. I fought to become someone who could stand here in front of you, someone worthy of your time. I've worked through my mistakes and my failures. I'm ready to embrace whatever comes next. If you are. Emily inhaled sharply, her demeanor softening slightly. There was power in his raw honesty, and for the first time Jake felt the solid ground beneath him. Yet, amid the burgeoning openness, he was still acutely aware of the threat of rejection. That the very intimacy they once shared could either be resurrected or dismantled irrevocably. She hesitated, her gaze turning inward as if summoning a cascade of thoughts. Jake, the truth is, I've changed too. I've been finding my own way, trying to heal, figuring out who I want to be moving forward. Each word was a delicate stepping stone away from the abyss of uncertainty. The conversation was rapidly approaching a pivotal moment, and Jake felt the urgency build, a strange fusion of hope and anxiety. Their lives diverged in countless ways over the years, yet the connection between them felt tangible, as if they were already threading their paths back to one another. Maybe, he suggested, emboldened, we could explore what that means together. I want to understand your journey as well. But just as Jake imbued a sense of hope into the air, he caught the shadow crossing Emily's face. It felt as though a cloud loomed, threatening to obscure this fragile moment. He realized this was not just a reunion. It was a negotiation of their futures, and an exploration of all they had become. Jake's heart pounded with the recognition that despite the connection loosed between them, the risks they faced were formidable, their boundaries still uncharted. As if sensing his thought, she peered deeply into his eyes, hesitation woven into her gaze. Yet beneath it was a flicker of curiosity. To this point, Jake had only hoped to reclaim a piece of his past. Now he wondered if they could forge a new future. But would Emily have the courage to confront her own truths as well, and more importantly, would they withstand the strains of the lives they had lived apart? The conversation hung between them, thick with possibilities yet shrouded in uncertainty, a veritable crossroads that neither had anticipated. This time, Jake felt the weight of not only his past but also the choice they faced illuminate the path ahead. What lay beyond that uncertainty? Would they both dare to confront the intricacies of their changed selves, or would fear pull them apart once more? Jake could sense the shifting undercurrents in the air, a battleground of emotions where hope clashed with apprehension. The remnants of their past lingered like a haunting melody, weaving in and out of the stark new reality they faced. He studied Emily, searching for the courage within her that he hoped would echo his own. I understand that this is complicated, he murmured, the weight of his words wrapping around them. But whatever happened before, whatever mistakes we made, it can't define what we are capable of now. We are no longer the same people. We are not bound by who we were. His own sense of purpose swelled within him, urging him to peel away old layers and reveal the man he aspired to be, a man capable not just of love, but of understanding and honesty. Emily remained silent for a heartbeat too long, and dread curled in Jake's stomach. Perhaps he had miscalculated. Would she prefer to allow the past to linger unaddressed, swallowed by the very silence they shared? Time hung heavily, and Jake leaned back, trying to stealthily rein in mounting anxiety. Her gaze dropped to the table, a fleeting flicker of determination flickering like a candle battling the winds of uncertainty. It's not that easy, Jake. I've been learning how to be whole by myself, how to navigate my own life alone. Her voice trembled, yet a steely resilience underlined her words. I don't want to rush into something without being certain that I've truly found my way. Jake's heart sank. He knew that uncertainty was a foundation for decisions, but the schools of thought they had navigated separately created a chasm he hadn't anticipated. What would help you find that certainty? What do you need from me? The words slipped out before he could censor them. The impulse to fix things surged forward. For a moment, Emily searched his face as if he were a puzzle she needed to solve. Her expression oscillated between vulnerability and determination, challenging him to confront his own feelings. It's not just about what I need from you, Jake. It's about figuring out where we fit into each other's lives now. He nodded, recognizing this was the crossroads he had feared. Then let's start by being honest about what we've been through. I spent too many years avoiding the truth, pushing things aside as if they didn't matter. But now I want to own my scars and embrace my evolution. I need to know if we can find common ground on the foundations of who we are today, not just who we were together. The air pulsed with intensity. Emily's fingers drummed on the table, and Jake noticed the tension radiating from her. It mirrored his own hesitations. He wanted to reach out, to close that painful distance, but something stopped him. Perhaps a silent agreement that they needed to unclothe their emotions before taking bold steps forward. Understanding the changes we've both undergone might mean digging up things that are painful, and I can't promise I won't be scared, she said, but her voice held more steel than before. Jake saw the flickering embers of hope, slowly igniting passion and possibility. But if you're willing to wade through that with me, maybe we can reignite something that brings us both healing. The truth of her statement sunk in, tethering Jake to that pivotal moment. He realized the risk attached to opening old wounds, but the thought of a future freed from the chains of their past ignited a new spark within him. He had to summon his courage to keep moving forward, to embrace transparency as a cornerstone of their potential future together. Let's get uncomfortable then, he declared. Let's discover how our paths can merge. No more burying what we have inside. I'm ready if you are. She stared at him, eyes wide and searching, and Jake felt the tapestry of their shared history weaving around them, intertwining pain with the promise of redemption. Would this journey be as cathartic as he hoped? The notion that their wounds could inspire growth thrilled him. Jake realized that in both their vulnerabilities lay the seeds of possibility, but uncertainty lurked like a shadow, reminding them the past was a formidable foe. What twists and turns awaited them as they began to unfold their truths? As he leaned forward again, ready to challenge their barriers head-on, he sensed a shift, not just in the space between them, but within himself. Would he emerge from this cathartic exploration whole, or splintered just as before as they untangled the strands of their intertwined lives? The question hung in the air, tremulous and potent, as they plunged deeper into their shared ascent, searching for salvation within their transformation. What awaited them both, raw and undiscovered on the other side? The realization that the true expedition was just beginning sent shivers down his spine. The weight of their impending conversation sat heavily in the air, wrapping around Jake like a thick fog. Each moment stretched longer than the last, inviting doubt to creep into his thoughts. Could they emerge from this unscathed, or were they merely setting themselves up for another cycle of misunderstanding? He met Emily's gaze again, searching for signs of her resolve while grappling with his own. "What do we do first?" she asked, her voice steadying like the first light of dawn breaking through night's lingering shadows. Jake took a deliberate breath, grounding himself as he searched for the right words. "Let's start with our truths. I've been avoiding my own for too long, hiding behind the way I think things should be." He hesitated, fear flickering in his chest. "I want to be more than just someone who offers comfort. I want to face everything. No more pretending that the past has evaporated completely." Emily nodded, a mix of recognition and apprehension dancing in her eyes. "I've buried my feelings as well, Jake. I need to let them surface, but it feels like chaos waiting to unleash." Her honesty sparked something within him, a call to examine the chaos in his own heart. The challenges he had faced, new job responsibilities, friendships fraying at the edges, the relentless push and pull of grief, hung like weights on his soul. Each past connection, every fleeting sense of purpose had left him fragile and hesitant. Jake leaned slightly forward, elbows resting on the table. Emily, I've been wrestling with these burdens for too long. It's time for both of us to show up completely, even if we're scared. He offered her a half smile, one born from mutual understanding. I don't need you to fix me, I just want to share where I've been. Taking a deep breath, Emily began. After we broke apart, I've struggled, realigning my identity afterward. I think in the shadows of who I was with you, I lost sight of who I wanted to become. Her voice faltered, unease creeping back. Unraveling what I truly want is daunting, especially when I have to reconcile it with what we once had. A spark of recognition lit within Jake. Those words resonated as if tapping into his own tangled emotions. We were so wrapped up in our version of happiness back then, we failed to notice the narratives we constructed. I've spent years trying to fit into roles that don't really resonate. My career, my relationships, they were all means to escape from addressing what I really felt. Their past reverberated with every word spoken, but Jake sensed a burgeoning resilience igniting between them. He could almost envision it, a fragile bridge built from their shared struggles, connecting their present selves to their experiences shaped by pain and uncertainty. We are not the sum of our heartbreaks, he declared with newfound conviction. I've discovered I can harness the energy from my setbacks. I can channel it into something productive. Whether it's through my work or passion projects, there's a fire lit within me that I need to explore. Emily's eyes brightened, curious yet cautious. And what if that fire leads us down an even darker path? What if we burn ourselves again trying to navigate this rediscovery together? Jake paused, the bead of uncertainty cooling against his resolve. I don't have a crystal ball to see how this journey will unfold, but I do know staying set in the past won't help us flourish either. A flicker of hope illuminated her features. What if we structure our journey? Perhaps discrete steps to refrain from overwhelming ourselves. I like that, Jake replied, his heart quickening. Let's address one topic at a time, slowly peel back our defenses. Maybe we can celebrate our victories with the small discoveries along the way. They spent the next hour brainstorming. It felt less like a reunion steeped in unresolved tensions and more like the crafting of a roadmap, one laced with trust and tentative hope. Each step forward seemed to further dissolve the isolation that had shadowed them for the last 5 years. Now, for the first time, Jake felt an electric pull toward the uncharted paths in both their lives. The notion excited him. It sparked motivation, a renewed sense of purpose. As they engaged in this back-and-forth dialogue, pushing and toying with ideas circulating through the air, he realized he was not merely evolving for the sake of his relationship with Emily. He was discovering himself. But as the clock ticked away, Jake felt the specter of doubt begin to encroach again. Could they truly redefine themselves, or would they be blinded by the distance of their histories, repeating cycles once more? He took one last look at Emily, considerately vulnerable yet radiant in her resolve. Would this fragile bond sustain the weight of their truths, or would it fracture under the pressure of what lay ahead? The air receded with potential as he pondered this, leaving an unsettling question lingering. How much further could their exploration go if they truly committed to embracing each unknown within themselves? With that uncertainty thrumming in his chest, Jake felt the real journey was poised to begin. Would they trust enough to traverse those tight ropes between past and future? Jake's heart raced as silence enveloped them once more. He glanced at the clock, every ticking second amplifying the anticipation of what would follow. This moment, he realized, was pivotal. It was the first crack in the armor he had worn for years, both a revelation and a challenge. What if we start with what we fear most? He suggested, his voice tentative yet curious. After all, confronting our fears is the path to true understanding. Emily's brow furrowed and she bit her lip, processing his words as if weighing the heaviness they carried. You mean, like the things we've tried to avoid discussing? The very reasons we fell apart? Exactly, Jake affirmed, leaning in. I want to tackle them head on. We need to understand our fears to move past them. It would break the cycle, right? A heaviness settled in the air, laden with unresolved feelings. Emily hesitated, visibly torn between the safety of silence and the pull of vulnerability. Okay, I'll go first, she offered quietly, unwilling to let fear dictate their conversation. Her fingers drummed nervously against the polished tabletop. I fear that I'm still not worthy of love, that I'll only sabotage any chance I get, Emily admitted, her voice wavering but steady. And for the longest time I associated my worth with my relationships with you. Being apart has shattered that notion, but it still lingers in the back of my mind. Jake felt a pang of empathy hit him as she revealed that pain. It struck him to the core. He had wrestled with his own worth, often assessing his value through how others defined him. You are worthy, Emily, he declared, the words tumbling out with more conviction than he expected. It's not tied to anyone but yourself. Making that shift is harder than it sounds, she sighed, remnants of doubt clouding her eyes. What about you, Jake? What are you terrified of? Her question hung in the air, heavy with anticipation. He inhaled deeply, pulling the courage he had mustered throughout their conversation. I fear I'll always be the person who drifts between identities, never grounded in one place. The admission sliced through Jake's facade. Most days I feel like a ghost, wandering around without purpose, clinging to the shadows of who I was, rather than stepping into who I can be. Emily's gaze softened, imparting an understanding that transcended words. But you have the fire within you, Jake, she encouraged, tilting her head as if trying to light that flame. You said it yourself. He chuckled softly, the tension lightening momentarily. Maybe, but igniting that fire comes with responsibility. It's easier to stay hidden in self-doubt than to risk bursting into flame and getting burned. A moment's silence passed, the gravity of their fears lingering as they exchanged glances. What had begun as a dialogue laden with trepidation was morphing into something unique. They were tangling in introspection, inching toward a form of honesty that could either crush their connection or forge it anew. What if we take small steps toward embracing our fears? Emily suggested as an idea sparked, breaking their mutual silence. If we can acknowledge them, we can work on them, Jake nodded, intrigued by the prospect. Like tackling one fear each week? We could support one another as we confront these thoughts. He visualized the plan emerging, the mere act of creating structure quieting some of the chaos inside him. Yes, she affirmed, eyes brightening. It might not be a quick fix, but at least we won't be facing them alone. There was courage in that notion, a sense of solidarity layered with shared responsibility. The promise of accountability sparked a fierce eagerness in Jake. He could already feel a shift in himself, an urge to break the mold he had come to rely on. But an unsettling truth shadowed that eagerness. How would they manage when the exposure became too raw? When the open wounds resurfaced amidst their attempts at healing? He glanced at Emily, preparing himself for the unknown. It's a plan then, he affirmed, though uncertainty threaded through his voice. Would the intimacy of their honesty fortify their bond, or perilously expose their vulnerabilities? As he pondered this, he couldn't shake the feeling that revealing their fears was merely the beginning. What awaited them in the depths of their exploration? The answer beckoned, shrouded in the mysteries of their connection, and Jake felt the thrill in not knowing what loomed ahead. Would they emerge transformed, or would they lose themselves in the very chaos they sought to comprehend? The challenge of confronting the unknown was just taking shape, and Jake could feel the stakes rising. Jake spent the next morning wrestling with the weight of the conversation. The sun streamed through his window, illuminating the dust particles that danced in the air, but it felt like a world away from the turmoil within him. He glanced at the reflection in the glass, the uncertainty twisting in his gut. If he was to truly embrace the journey he'd committed to with Emily, it meant delving deep into introspection, not just skimming the surface. That afternoon he met Emily at their designated cafe. A familiar sense of anticipation buzzed in the air as he entered, eyes scanning for her in the small crowd. She was seated at the corner table, fingers fidgeting around a coffee cup, a picture of both determination and apprehension. Hey, he greeted, sliding into the chair across from her. Ready for our first step? Emily's lips curled up ever so slightly. a fragile smile that barely masked her nerves. I guess so. It feels daunting, to be honest. What if it's worse than we imagined? That's the risk, right? Jake replied, willing himself to sound more confident than he actually felt. But what if it leads to something better? As they sipped their drinks, he realized the small act of being vulnerable with one another was already pulling them closer. He felt lighter somehow, their shared resolve wrapping around him like a comforting blanket. Which fear do you want to tackle first? Emily asked, breaking through his reverie. Jake had thought about it. He had already given voice to the unsettling fear of drifting through life without purpose. But now, staring into Emily's attentive eyes, he was reminded of another fear, one that tinged all the others with deeper shades of doubt. I fear failure, he confessed, his voice dropping to a whisper. That I'll pursue something, anything, and never know if I'm truly good enough. I don't want to face the world and keep falling short. A pained recognition crossed Emily's features. But everyone experiences failure, Jake. It's part of growing. We need to redefine what success looks like. Her insight struck a chord, echoing in his mind. He thought of all the times he had held himself back, retreating into the shadows out of fear of disappointing those he cared about. Especially Emily. It's easy to say that, he continued, a slight tremor in his voice. But how do we cultivate resilience against that fear? By celebrating the small victories, she suggested, her confidence blooming as she spoke. Let's set a goal for this week. How about we both take one action that feels risky? Jake mulled over the idea, excitement mingling with trepidation. Embracing the uncertainty meant stepping out of his comfort zone, facing the possibility of stumbling. All right, he agreed. I'll reach out to an old colleague about a project I've always wanted to pursue but never dared. He noticed a flicker of pride in Emily's eyes, and it felt like a lit match kindling warmth inside him. What about you? He asked, leaning into the conversation. I think I'll try talking to someone about my old poetry, she admitted, her cheeks flushing slightly. I've always tucked it away, fearing judgment, but it's time to share my voice. Her determination prompted a surge of admiration within him. Even in her vulnerability, there was a strength Jake struggled to find. It made him wonder about the hidden depths yet to be revealed in both their journeys. As they sketched out their plans, laughter bubbled between them, an atmosphere charged with newfound energy. Jake felt the tension dissipate with each word exchanged, the intimacy of their dialogue wrapping them in an almost protective cocoon. But as they departed, uncertainty gnawed at him once more. What if this journey laid bare their insecurities, exposing them to failure? He couldn't shake a growing apprehension creeping in, balancing excitement with dread. Would they emerge with their bond fortified, or would the weight of their discoveries drive them apart? As he walked away, he felt the stakes rising higher. The next week would demand more than just action. It would require confronting emotions he'd kept buried for too long. Would they have the strength to withstand the revelations waiting to surface, or were they simply carving their way toward more heartbreak? As the sun rose over the Texas plains, Jake stood at the edge of his beloved ranch, a place he had come to regard not only as his livelihood but as his testament of perseverance. This land, once a symbol of lost dreams, now hummed with vibrant potential. Finally, after years of neglecting his own growth, he was poised to reclaim both his legacy and himself. The week following his heart-to-heart with Emily had wrought change he hadn't anticipated. With each risky action he took, be it reaching out to his old colleague or encouraging Emily to share her poetry, Jake felt a spark reignite within him. He was conquering the paralyzing fear of inadequacy that had haunted him for so long. No longer was he the mere poor rancher, wallowing in despair. He was becoming a man of purpose and conviction. Their shared vulnerabilities had paved the way for a clearer understanding between them, forming a bridge that now felt solid beneath their feet. They had forged this connection through authenticity, shedding layers of fear and embracing each other for the individuals they had grown to be. As Jake surveyed his ranch, he noted the changes both external and internal. Fixing fences and beautifying his property wasn't just a matter of aesthetics, it was a manifestation of his newfound clarity. Life had begun to flourish again, rows of resilient crops peppering the barren landscape he'd battled against. That resurgence paralleled his own efforts to cultivate a stronger sense of self. It was time for Jake to tap into that energy and take the ultimate step forward. He needed to meet Emily again. Waking up that morning, a quiet confidence enveloped him, whispering assurance of his worthiness. This was not just an opportunity to rekindle their romance. It was a chance to solidify their commitment to openly explore their emotions and support one another moving forward. He made his way to the cafe that had become their sanctuary, each footfall echoing a mantra of conviction. Arriving, he saw Emily already seated at their corner table. She looked radiant, yet he could sense a hint of nerves swirling beneath her steady gaze. "Hey," she greeted warmly, her smile illuminating the room and casting aside Jake's lingering doubts. "Hey," he returned, feeling the familiar electric current between them surge as they settled into their chairs. "Ready for another step?" "I am," she replied, the determination in her voice reigniting the motivation between them. "I've been thinking about our goals from last week. I took a leap and shared my poetry at an open mic night. I was terrified." There was a sparkle in her eye as she recounted her triumph, a clear testament to her growth. Jake's heart swelled with pride for her bravery. "That's incredible, Emily. I'm so proud of you. Looking back now, I can see how much we've both accomplished." "Your message to your colleague, were you able to connect?" she asked, curiosity stirring in her eyes. "I did," he replied, a grin breaking out across his face. "It felt empowering to voice my ambitions. I'm currently writing a grant proposal for a community agricultural project that could revitalize local farmers. It's exciting." "That's amazing," Emily beamed, and her enthusiasm ignited something deeper within him. They were not just revisiting the past. They were creating a future built on shared aspirations and hard-won resilience. As the conversation flowed, the weight of their previous uncertainties lifted. There were no barriers remaining. Just two individuals standing side by side in the knowledge that they had both developed significantly. Jake felt the emotional ties binding him to Emily tighten with an enticing promise of more to come. This wasn't fleeting. It was substantial and real. "Imagine what we can do if we continue to celebrate each other's growth," Jake mused, leaning closer. "We can create something extraordinary together." Emily locked eyes with him, a shared flicker of vulnerability mixing with hope. "I've thought about that a lot. I want us to challenge each other to be stronger, even if it means facing uncomfortable truths along the way." "And I'm right there with you," Jake asserted, sincerity flowing from him. "We're both worthy of love, happiness, and success, on our own terms. I can see us as partners, supporting one another's dreams." The realization washed over them, a collective acknowledgement that they were not just piecing their past together, but they were building a new foundation from it, one crafted from resilience, empowerment, and mutual respect. As the moments unfolded, Jake felt a liberation envelop him. He rose from the table, leaning in closer and capturing Emily's gaze with a sense of clarity he hadn't felt in years. The world outside faded, and all he could see was the woman before him, a blend of past nostalgia and future potential. "Emily, will you allow me the honor of being not just your love but your partner every step of the way? I've spent too long in the shadows. I want to embrace the warmth of us being together." She exhaled deeply, tears pooling in her eyes, reflecting a myriad of emotions that held strength and vulnerability alike. "Yes, Jake. I want that too. We've come so far, and I refuse to turn back. Together we can forge a new story." In that moment, with the sunlight bathing them in golden warmth, Jake knew he had achieved a personal truth. He had never just needed Emily to fill a void. He needed her to accompany him on a journey of exploration and shared fulfillment. The connection he had longed for solidified, the once-faded dreams of youth reigniting with vigor. Jake's full-circle transformation had come to fruition, driven by genuine resolve and an unyielding determination to overcome the shadows of the past. He was finally anchored, standing tall not only as a rancher but as a man of strength, purpose, and partnership. This was their moment to shine, not just as individuals, but as a united front ready to embrace the unfolding narrative of their intertwined lives. Now the journey continued, painted not with shadows but with radiant hope, the adventure of rebirth, resilience, and love that would last a lifetime. Don't wait even one more second. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support for the power of personal overcoming stories.